And let me say, we have taken the time to request of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and our sister parliaments in the region what policies exist in respect of the carrying of guns into Parliament. And the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association has written us, and we will share a copy with you, to indicate that those parliaments, and they've referred to 3 to start with, in Sri Lanka, that guns are not allowed to be carried by members within the precincts of Parliament, but more importantly for our immediate purposes, that it is not a matter for the privileges of the Parliament, but for the Speaker of the House of Assembly to decide. Similarly, in Uganda, firearms are not allowed, and similarly in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan. But let us come closer to home. I would have spoken equally with the acting clerk of the Senate in Trinidad, as well as the deputy clerk in Jamaica, and both have written us, indicating that in both instances, firearms, guns, are not allowed within the precincts of their parliament, and in both instances, in Trinidad, it was determined by the Speaker, who has responsibility for access and security, with his orders being carried out by the Marshal of Parliament. In Jamaica, it was determined by the Jamaica Constabulary Force with the consent of the Speaker of the House. So to refer this matter to a committee of privilege is just another way of trying to defer action on the part, in our view, of the Speaker rather than simply dealing with the matter. In relation to the matter of Mr. Eswick's retention in the Cabinet, removing Mr. Eswick from Cabinet is not an indication of innocence or guilt on the part of the Prime Minister, but it is a reflection of the fact that if you want to speak with credibility about antisocial behavior and the breakdown of law and order in respect of other groups in the society, you cannot retain in your Cabinet a person whose behavior is now the subject of one of the most serious allegations to come in the history of our modern Parliament. In those circumstances, he ought to be removed, and certainly pending any investigation. But for the Prime Minister to retain him there without further, given his promises of a ministerial code of conduct, is to say to the rest of Barbados, there is one rule for the members of the Democratic Labour Party, and there is another rule for all members of Barbados. It is a fundamental breach of trust. Let me say that we do not take the issue of a boycott lightly. We believe that the issues that have now come before us, particularly in relation to the failure to implement a simple matter that no guns should be allowed to enter Parliament, should be an issue that should detain either side. And in these circumstances, we will not, as an official opposition in this country, be attending the sitting of Parliament tomorrow on the 20th of April. A boycott of Parliament is not a matter which we treat too lightly. It is an action that is reserved for the most serious of cases, cases where aspects of our democracy are threatened. It is intended specifically to highlight in this instance our concern in relation to the failure of Parliament and of the government to treat to matters pertaining to the handling of this matter, both in respect of the gun policy and generally in respect of the double message that is being sent to the country as to what is acceptable behavior. It is intended to highlight the unacceptable nature of the response of the government, both in relation to the gun policy and in relation to the retention of Mr. Eswick as a member of Cabinet. It also reflects our deep concern over the behavior that is intimidatory, unparliamentary on the part of a member of Parliament and a minister of the government. You cannot resort to intimidation, force, or violence simply because you do not like the view that is being expressed by the other side. You cannot seek to do so simply because you are unable to articulate appropriately your opposition to the other side's views in a way that parliamentarians have been expected to and have done in the past. This is the wrong example to set to all Barbadians. And let me repeat, if it had happened to a man in the Pine pulling a gun, he would not be here sitting down saying that he will address Parliament when Parliament reconvenes on the issue. but he would be in Dodds awaiting a trial and awaiting the opportunity to say whether he was innocent or guilty. Let me also say today, therefore, that this matter is too serious a matter to be swept under the carpet. The Barbados Labour Party will reserve its rights in these matters for further action, but it is not intended to be an ongoing boycott, but simply to highlight to the country that an opposition for whom over 75,000 people in this country voted deems that a matter has happened that is unparalleled in our parliamentary history and one that is unparalleled in our political history as a party. And in those circumstances, it is important to call attention to it and to say that we are at that dangerous point where failure to act will further erode whatever social capital and trust that we have in this country at a time when the government on that same day of the 19th of March spent the entire day talking about the behavior of other people in this country, from minibus men to artists to other people in Barbados. Let me also say that I have made a written request this morning to the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation for us to be able to purchase time on television so as to explain our position to the Barbadian public, because we do not believe that the actions in the past in relation to the treatment of our press conferences and other statements have shown that they will be adequately covered by that corporation in respect of explaining to the Barbadian public why we are taking this serious action of not attending the Parliament. I also want to say that our failure to attend Parliament tomorrow will not in any way take away from our continued duty to represent the interests of all Barbadians at this most difficult and challenging of times. We will continue tomorrow, as throughout, if we are forced to take further action, to represent the interests and to call the government to account on those matters that affect the economic, social and political welfare of all Barbadians, and will not in any way refrain from our responsibility of so doing. There is a separate matter that I will address in relation to constituency reports after questions, but I think that it is fair that we focus on this issue at this stage so that there is absolute clarity. I'd like to ask the former Prime Minister, Mr. Arthur, if he has anything to say, and then the Deputy Political Leader, Mr.